Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Hero Arts. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how to create a blended background like this galaxy background with a solid background stamp. We're going to start with the cling stamp included in the December My Monthly Hero Kit. Because it's a cling, I'm going to remove the foam pad from my MISTI. Definitely need a MISTI for today's technique because you're going to have to stamp your stamp multiple times. I'm going to ink up my stamp now with Lemon Drop Reactive ink, and I'm just going to ink up small areas with a blending brush. The blending brush is going to help to create really soft edges on the areas that we ink up with the ink, and that's going to just make it easier to get that blended soft kind of galaxy look later. Now because we used a blending brush, we couldn't get as much ink on the stamp as if we were just applying the ink pad directly to the stamp. So I'm going to have to ink up this stamp and stamp it multiple times till I get the intensity. I stamped this yellow about 3 times, but other colors I will stamp up to 6 times just to get the right intensity of the color. Now here I clean the stamp, and I probably should have just left that ink there. You'll see me later just leave the residual ink on the stamp. It's just helpful to have that residual ink left on there because you just know where you've already inked up and stamped already. Now moving on to another reactive ink color. This is Taffy. Same process, using a blending brush to apply the ink to the stamp and then stamping. And you can see how we're already starting to get those soft gradations in play with color. So here it is after I stamped it several times. It's much more intense and really looking pretty and really galaxy already. Now we're moving on to our next color. This is Pool Party. You can see here I left the taffy, the residual taffy, on my stamp, which really helps for me to know now where I've already inked it up and stamped, and so I now know the areas that I now need to focus on with my new shade. So here I've stamped it once with the Pool Party, and I'm going to go back and re-ink those areas and stamp it again. And here it is after I've stamped it multiple times with that Pool Party. You can really see I do use a lot of that color, starting to fill in a lot of the open white space with that. Now we're moving on to Blue Hawaii, and Blue Hawaii is mostly on the edges here, so I did start to actually apply the ink pad directly to the stamp, and then I softened with my blending brush just to again get that more soft gradation blended look. And here I've stamped it, and I will again re-ink using my ink pad and brushes because it's just because the ink is on the edges this time, I can actually get in there with my ink pad a little bit better. And here is the background after I stamped that Blue Hawaii several times. Now we have one last color. This is Intens-ified black ink. We're going to add a little bit to the left and bottom edges of our galaxy. This is the final touch. I think it really takes this galaxy background to the next level with that little bit of black. And just like with my other colors, I do ink it up and stamp it multiple times just to kind of build up the intensity. And here is this background after I've stamped that black several times. You can see it really starting to look pretty much done. I just wanted to point out that I do go back and add some more ink in those areas and stamp it again, just multiple times, just till I get the intensity and the solidness of the color that I like. And here's the background that I'm stopping with. I'm finishing here. So I went ahead and trimmed it down, and now I'm going to take a ink pad. I'm using the Intens-ified black one, just kind of going over the edges, just kind of cleans up the look a little bit. Now some of the sides that are a little bit lighter, I'm going to grab the Pool Party reactive ink pad and just do those a little bit of lighter areas, and that just really cleans this up and gives it a nice look. Now we're going to move on to our focal point. I have a couple images from the clear stamp set. I'm going to ink them up in Intens-ified black ink, stamp them onto a scrap of white cardstock, and after I stamp this, we are going to color it with Copic markers. I'm going to start by coloring my moon. I'm going to color the whole moon with my lightest gray, which is C1. I'm going to color the whole moon with that. And then I'm moving on to a medium shade. This is C3, starting to create that gradation over the moon so it has that spherical look. I do start coloring some of the craters, but I'll focus on those after I make this gradation over the moon. Then colored a little with C5, and now I'm blending it out so I have a nice gradation over that moon. Now we're working on the craters using C3 to color in some of the craters in the lighter area of the moon, and then moved on to C5 to color some of those craters in the darker areas of the moon, and then finally C7, my darkest, just using it to add a darkest shade to some of those craters in the darker areas just so they pop and actually look like they have some depth to them. Now I'm just kind of going over and blending everything out. Now we're done with the moon. We're going to move on to our cute little astronaut girl. I'm going to start with her spacesuit, coloring it with C1, then adding a shadow with C3 along the sides. Then I'll move on to just the little detail around her helmet, color that. Then for her face and skin, I have 2 brown tones picked out, and then I'm going to color her hair with 2 brown tones, starting with E29 and then E49 for my dark. Now that we're finished with her hair and skin, we're going to move on to the boots and gloves. Have some blues picked out for that. B23 first, which is my light, then B45 a medium, and then B29, which is my dark. And then we'll just blend them out with the lighter shades. Then I'll add a little shadow or a little glare to her helmet with BG10, and then finish with the star with a couple yellows, Y00, and then Y15 for my dark. Now we're going to go ahead and die cut these out. So I've grabbed the matching dies, line them up with the images, used a little piece of micro pour tape to hold the dies in place, and then I'll just run them through my little Hero Arts cutter here. After I've cut them out, we'll just pop out those die cuts. They look great. I was kind of thinking of like Little Prince was kind of my idea for this card, and I like that she's trying to grab a star. I think that's so cute. So we're going to use a really cute sentiment that says "Reach for the Stars" from the set. I'm going to stamp it on some pitch black cardstock. I used some anti-static powder because I'm going to heat emboss this. Inked it up in embossing Watermark ink. Now I'm just going to dip it into some white detail embossing powder. Tap off the excess. I'll use a brush even to kind of clean up some of the static clinging areas of the embossing powder, and then we will heat set this, of course, with our heat tool. Now I'm going to actually fussy cut this sentiment out. I really like the look of a fussy cut sentiment, but if you don't like to fussy cut your sentiments out, you can definitely just use a paper trimmer and trim the sentiment down to a strip, and it will look just as cute on the card as the fussy cut sentiment does. Okay, so that's all done. Now I'm ready to kind of put this all together. I'm going to start by adding some liquid adhesive to the back side of my galaxy background and just adhere it onto the front of an A2 top folding white card base. After I've got that stuck down, I'll then grab my images here and kind of get them arranged. I want the girl to look like she's walking on the moon, so I'm going to glue her to that moon. Just going to add a little bit of liquid glue to her legs. I do have foam adhesive already on the moon, the little girl, and my sentiment. So I'm just now going to remove the backing on that foam adhesive, stick that image or those 2 images down, and then we'll finish just by removing the backing on the foam adhesive of the sentiment and then stick that down as well. And that will complete our card. And I think it just looks so magical with that beautiful galaxy background and our cute girl walking along the moon. Again, definitely has that Little Prince vibe, which I love. And I think the sentiment pairs perfectly with this image. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.